What's up YouTube? Welcome back, JDS Outdoors. John here. In today's video we're going to start cutting and welding on the boat. First things first though, the welder, we got to start, we get that set up to do aluminum. So let's go ahead and get that thing set up to finally burn some aluminum. So since I've gotten the Miller, all I've done is steel with it. So this is going to take a minute to finally set up the spool gun right here. Brand spanking new 30A Miller spool gun. It's got the 30-foot lead, so it should be pretty nice for running around and tacking stuff together. I guess it's the Spoolmatic 30A. A lot of wires and stuff to it, but I'm pretty excited to get that thing hooked up. But before we can hook up the welder, we got to make sure we got our other tools in order. Perfect. Because everybody knows anybody can be a welder as long as you have a grinder. So, grinder set up, ready to make them welds look pretty, even if they're not. So, let's go ahead and get this pile of aluminum picked up, separated from what we need and what we don't. First thing we're going to do after we get the welder set up and we do some practice tacks, because I got to practice on some scrap prior to the real thing, is we're going to get this bottom piece bent up and start tacking the transom and the sides, which the sides are right here and there. Start getting it tacked together so we can see what we have here. But enough talking. Let's go ahead and get that thing set up. Alright, so I went ahead and got the spool gun hooked up, and it was actually super easy. All you had to do is just plug that plug in, hook up that big wire to that nut, and run the gas line. And what's really cool about this welder is you can actually leave the regular MIG torch hooked up for steel, and to switch it back over, all you got to do is just swap this here gas line. So that's ready to go. Let's go ahead and do some practice welding on that 1/8 inch aluminum there. So I got the welder set up for, we're going to try pulse MIG just to see how pulse does with 5000 series wire 035 on 1/8 inch metal. So spool gun's loaded up with some 5356, and we're going to test it on here. And I want to do two things. So I heard that running plasma, you have to clean these edges because it welds like crap. So I'm going to test that. I was curious. So this edge here is cut by hand, so I'm going to weld that first, and then all the edges on this are cut by plasma, and we'll weld that next just to see the difference. I'm sure there's no gas in these lines here, so the first little bit I'm just going to run a random bead to see what it looks like until the gas gets there. And once the gas gets there, then we'll see what it looks like welding. And it's been a while since I welded aluminum, so don't hate. But like I said, anybody can weld. Anybody can be a welder if they got a grinder. So let's go ahead and stick this stuff together, see what it looks like. Alright, so I hit this piece right here first, just to purge the gas through, because it's never had gas through it before. and it held at one spot too long, so it burnt through. Not a big deal. That was just a test. Let's go over this piece. This is that piece that was cut by hand, so it needed no prep. Weld's not horrible. It did a pretty good job, I think. And then let's go to the plasma cut piece. And it's also not horrible. But like I said, I'm not a welder. I had the wrong angle there, but whatever. It's probably hot still. Yeah, let's put a pliers on it. See what kind of strength we got here. Oh yeah. It ain't going nowhere. That'll hold 2-ton Tina back from the buffet. We'll be good. Sweet. Let's go ahead and get this set aside. Get this bent up so we can tack it together. It's going to start getting exciting. We're going to see a boat here very soon. I'm going to do it by hand. And the way I'm going to do that, probably, well, it should work just fine. It's not like the best way to do it, but it's the way I'm going to have to do it. So I did a test piece here on a piece of 3/16 scrap. And what I did is I took the circular saw and I cut about, I don't know, 65% of the way through it. And then that allowed me to bend it pretty easy by hand. After it's bent and everything's tacked together, we'll just run a bead along here. It might not be the strongest of seams, but it is 3/16 of an inch thick with a bead of weld on it. Should be okay. And it's the way I'm going to do it. So, I got the saw set up, tested on that. Let's go ahead and get her cut out. Alright, so those outside ones are cut. Didn't go too bad. Couple little oopses, but they'll be hidden by weld. One of which right there. Let's go ahead and get this flipped over, transfer the other line, and bend that one up too. Alright, now that we got that cut, one little oopsie there, but that's okay. Be hidden by weld. It's time to bend, but before we can bend this, we got to go ahead and bend the transom, and the transom will fit in that. So let's go ahead and get the lines marked out on this bad boy here, and put that in the bender. And what it's going to look like is this. So here's the bed sheet for the bottom, and those are the lines that we just did. And here is the bend sheet for the transom. It's got all of the dimensions and stuff we need, and that's what it should look like. We need a 45 and another 45 and a 90. So let's go ahead and get that marked out and bent. Alright, got the transom bent. Here's what it looks like. It's a little too far this way, but that's okay. We can adjust it once we get it in the boat. Not worried. let's go ahead and do a little bit of bending on the bottom and start tacking this thing together. Alright, so that went a little bit better than expected. I stood on the middle and pulled up on the sides and used those 2 wrenches to get the sides bent down. It's probably not the exact perfect angle yet, but it's a start. We can do some fine tuning once we start assembly, which is what's about to happen right now. So let's go ahead and throw the transom and start doing the sides and all the cool fun stuff. So here we go. Well, I put it up on this table here because I couldn't keep bending over to work on the floor. That sucks. Anyways, I got the transom tacked on quickly, and now I got to go ahead and do the sides. But in order to do the sides, I got to bend the front up. So what I did in the front here, it's not tacked together yet, but to close the gap, I used 2 wrenches and a ratchet strap, and it just sucked it right up, except for the very tip here, which we'll work on here in a minute. But we can get the base down here tacked together quickly and go from there. Then we can start adding sides, and it's going to start looking like a boat here real quick. So let's go ahead and tack that together. As you can tell, as soon as I released the ratchet, that didn't work so well. So let's go ahead and ratchet it again and do a little bit better job welding on that. Well, it worked that time. Did some tacks to hold it together, then I ran a couple short beads. That welder kicks butt. Wow, that's nice. Well, let's go ahead and start putting the sides on. So here we go. Well, I'm pretty much at a stopping point. I got my hand torch here, but what they failed to mention to me is it doesn't come with any consumables. If you think if you spend, you know, almost $500 on a torch, it would come with consumables, but it doesn't. So we're at a standstill for a minute, a few days, so we can close up the front of that thing. We need the hand torch to cut the piece that goes from here all the way over to there, fills that gap, and it'll make that hole thing disappear, so to speak. Make it a nice solid piece like it's supposed to be. But at any rate, it's starting to look kind of like a boat. So that's kind of cool. We're just stuck for a little bit. There's the back of it. And it's just tacked together, so we can take it apart and fix stuff if we need to. Not a big deal. But it's starting to look like something now. And I made a mistake over here. This angle here is only supposed to be 13 degrees, not 45. But that's okay. Once we get all this welded together a little bit better, we can put some pressure on that and bend it up a little bit to make it a little prettier. But that's not a big deal. No worries there. And if it doesn't work, we'll just cut it off and make another one. Also, not a big deal. It's learning. We're having fun here in the JDS Outdoors Garage. Building fun toys. The motor is impatiently waiting to be used. Actually, the whole thing is impatiently waiting to be used. And I'm getting excited. So, if you want to see what this thing turns out to be, feel free to follow along if you want. Oh, another side note, I'm almost at 10,000 subscribers. That's pretty cool for some dumb redneck in his garage like me. So thank you for all the support. And remember to sign on to my page and buy some merchandise, because I don't have any. I'm just kidding. I don't have any merchandise because you guys support me by watching, and that's good enough for me. So, as always, thank you very much for watching my channel, my videos. It's very much appreciated, and it allows me to pay for 1/100th of a project like this. So, thank you from the bottom of my heart. You guys enjoy, stay safe, and don't start any fires. Peace.